Hey everyone, good evening. Welcome, Leon. Thanks for joining the broadcast. Today we are going to talk about the next installment in our building a high-performing team, a rock-solid team, in our high-performing leadership series. We're going to talk about roles and responsibilities. So having been an organizational development consultant and coach and facilitator over about 20 years now, I've seen these patterns emerge over time with teams that aren't performing up to the level of expectation, right? They're either underperforming in some fashion, or they're just like in conflict, they're stepping all over each other, or the ball's getting dropped, things aren't being addressed. And so a common cause of that oftentimes is more structural in nature, right? And by structural, what I mean is, in terms of roles and responsibilities, that's not so much to do with the people themselves. It's more about kind of what they're expected to do, and procedures or policies or things of that nature. Kind of the global arching thing. So for you as a leader, if you're watching this, this is one of the areas to look at. In previous broadcasts, I talked about clarifying the team's values and the vision and the mission. All of those things can also lead to the lack of those, or if they're outdated, that can lead to a team being in conflict with each other or not performing as well. And so these are all building blocks that help to build a team that really surpasses any efforts that any individual superstar may be able to accomplish, and where you really have your team all in concert and aligned, working together to achieve the goals that you've set up for them, or that the team has collectively set for themselves. So I'm going to share with you some five tips tonight for making a dent in this area, right? So if you've kind of done the assessment and you think, there's been some complaints, that usually the symptoms would be someone's not sure what they're supposed to be doing, or they say, oh, I thought you were going to be doing that. I thought you were going to be doing that. So if there's confusion there, or if there's people saying, hey, I'm the one that's supposed to be doing it, why are you doing it, right? You get some territorial disputes. So those are some symptoms that this is an area to address. And you can take the personalities out of it, because sometimes things become personal, but the root cause is really, in my belief, in my experience, centered more around your leadership or lack thereof, or ineffectiveness thereof. So here are some 5 tips what you can do. Number 1, map it out. Map out, all the roles and responsibilities on the team. So in terms of roles, who is client facing, within the organization? Who's behind the scenes? Who's in charge of communications? Who's in charge? I mean, your business. Hey, Dr. X, welcome back. I'm going to be moving over to just Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, by the way. So if you're not following me on my business page, make sure you do that, because I'm phasing out Periscope. Just FYI, doing all right. So, Gilson, welcome. I'm going to do a separate Periscope broadcast to explain why. I'm going to do a separate broadcast. So, all right. So map it out. So that's number 1, map it out. So think of all the roles and responsibilities there are. In terms of the roles, your function best on the different types of roles that you have. They can be defined different ways by behind the scenes, customer facing. They can be based on technical specialties. There's a lot of different ways. They can be defined by a number of ways. Responsibilities tend to be more focused on kind of accountability, what they're accountable for, or tasks. It's not, someone might be responsible, but they might not be the one that's ultimately accountable. So the key thing though is for you to just map out what are all the things that people need to do to get the work done. All right, just keep it simple. Brainstorm that list. Take all the job descriptions, right? Lay out all the things they need to do. Create a grid if you need to, because some of them are going to be shared. For some of them, you're going to have multiple people, or every team member might have some responsibility for certain things. But just map it out. Another approach you can take, and then you can sort through it, what it should be, right? But what I really encourage you to do is engage your team in this conversation. It'll be only on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Yeah, that's what it's moving to. So, okay. So I really encourage you to engage your team in the discussion. And one of the exercises you can do is you can ask them and come prepared to share what are their top 5, what do they feel their top 5 priorities are and responsibilities are. And have them share. They can put it on a flip chart if we're meeting in person. And since we're in a virtual world now, for the most part, you can do a virtual adaptation of that. But just to share that out so that they can get a sense of that. And I think what you'll find is people will discover, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you were responsible for that, right? And so you start to have the discussion around where the overlap is and where maybe some gaps are. Well, because you've laid out, some of those too, and there might be some gaps on the team where nobody is taking care of it because they thought someone else was doing it, or they just didn't know what they didn't know. And so what do they think they're responsible for? And then you can ask the peers, what do the peers think everyone else is responsible for? And then what do you expect? What do you expect as the leader? So that's really key. And really clarify that. One of the tools, once you have that discussion, one of the tools you can use is something called the RACI matrix that some teams use, RACI. It's an acronym for the R is for responsibilities. The A is for accountable. There's only one person accountable. For the responsibilities, you can have multiple people. And so just imagine this grid with the responsibilities going across and everyone's name going down, or vice versa, right, on the axes. The C is consulting. So someone isn't responsible, but their opinion should be gathered, right? They should be asked their opinion to weigh in on a situation, but they're not making any decisions. And then the I is, who needs to be informed? Just kind of kept in the loop, right? So it goes a little bit beyond roles and responsibilities, and also as a tool for communication as well, and for decision making. So it goes a little bit beyond the discussion here, but it's definitely a close cousin to that. So I really encourage the use of that. The second tip is have a robust onboarding process. So when someone comes new onto a team, what are you doing up front to make it really clear to them who's responsible for what? What are their top responsibilities? Who do they go to for what? So getting that. And if your team has had turnover, many times we fail to do this. We just make assumptions, right? So we want to make sure that we have that. The third one is to make sure you appoint a lead or a principal. So when there's shared responsibilities, make sure there's one person that's a primary, okay? A primary, kind of a guardian of that responsibility or whatnot. And if there's differences of opinion, then it's up for them to kind of round people up and kind of flush that out, okay? The fourth one is identify a preferred process for resolving disputes, for resolving conflicts and misunderstandings. Is it that we're going to have an all-hands meeting? Is it the person that has the issue needs to round everyone up, that has that shared responsibility? Is it that they need to come to you and notify you? Like what is the preferred resolution process when these happen? Okay. The fifth tip is to regularly revisit the roles and responsibilities, right? Because they change over time. Why do they change? Well, customer needs change. The dynamics in your company change. The people fulfilling the different positions change, right? Some people bring more or less to a given position, and they'll take on stuff that they weren't asked to take on, and it becomes a legacy thing. They just have taken responsibility, but they maybe shouldn't be responsible. Or maybe it's a good thing and you want to indoctrinate that. So regularly revisit, at least on an annual basis, the roles and responsibilities, so that as your team evolves, and as maybe you've taken on a whole new group in that year. So all kinds of things. Maybe you lost part of your group during that year. So it shifts the roles and responsibilities. So those are the 5 tips, so really map it out in terms of who's responsible for what from your view, and enroll the team and engage the team in suggestions. Share your personal experiences dealing with these barriers. Yeah. So thank you for adding that in. Have a robust onboarding process. Appoint a lead or principal for each role or responsibility. Identify a preferred resolution process. And lastly, regularly revisit. So people would connect. Yeah, thank you, Dr. X. I was trying to think of some good examples. So on Periscope, hey, Mr. Compton, good to see you. Looking for High Five Friday. I had one last Friday, but I'm going to start doing interviews too, mixed in on Fridays. I think my device the battery was dead this past Friday for Periscope, but I'm on still doing the Fridays at noon Pacific time, 12 noon Pacific time. So, one of the key things is really just to be aware. I remember when we had one of the teams. Here's an example for you, Dr. X. So in one team I worked on. Oh, awesome. One team I worked on, one of the challenges that we were all responsible for a lot of administrative duties and things of that nature as part of our job. And it was just the bane of our existence. We just wanted to be coaching and consulting and training. And one of the challenges was in terms of who was responsible for like getting students registered, sending them all the pre-work before a workshop, for example. And it used to be each of us was responsible for that. And the challenge is we didn't have consistency, right? Each one of the trainers did things differently and on different timelines. And so, what we decided to do and what the leader wanted was some standardized process for getting pre-work out to people who enroll in our workshops that we offered within the company. And ultimately what was decided was that, it wasn't the best use of our time for each of us to be doing that. That's one way to build consistency. But what we decided was to add that as a responsibility for one of our, they weren't technically an admin assistant, they were more than that, but to one of our more junior associates on our team to take that on, and that we were responsible for at least getting certain information to them, right, so many days beforehand, and then they would take care of the rest. And so that's something we were able to streamline that. It provided a better experience for employees in the company. It provided a better experience for us. It gave our boss peace of mind that things would be taken care of and the ball wouldn't be dropped, because that was happening. Oftentimes that would happen and the ball would be dropped. And, we were pretty mature. It didn't create too many big conflicts, but it definitely there was definitely a lot of confusion. It definitely was a lot of confusion. So the ball was getting dropped and there was a lot of inconsistency. And so when you want to build a high performing team, identify those areas that might be just not working efficiently, right? That's a whole nother broadcast, but that's a whole nother reason to do this, right? If you just want to improve efficiency of your team and overall effectiveness, is looking at what would be a more effective way to do it, right? So it's one thing to be clear on roles and responsibilities. It doesn't mean that that's the most effective way to do it, which is another type of discussion, and that's a process improvement discussion in that sense, right? So, so thank you, Dr. X, for nudging me to share a story, and so that's it for tonight. Those are my tips. For those on Periscope, I'm going to go ahead and type in my Facebook page, and you'll see my post. The advantage of that for those on Periscope is that you'll be notified in advance, and if you want to share it out, you'll be able to share the announcement. So on Periscope, I can't really do that. So that's one of the reasons I'm shifting. And so I'm typing it in the chat so you can, so that you can save it. Okay, facebook.com/high5career. Oh, that's all together, by the way. High Five Career is all smushed together. So it just automatically put in a space. If you're on Twitter, yeah, there's only, I'll broadcast to Twitter through LinkedIn, but there's only so many. I can do 3 platforms at a time. And I'm trying to just keep it simple to one device instead of having my tablet device and my phone and all that. So my iPad and my phone, I'm trying to just keep it simple. So am I looking to monetize? That would be great, but not necessarily on YouTube. I'm not looking to monetize on YouTube. I think you need like 1,000 followers and you need all that. But ideally, if people like what I have to share, I would, certainly welcome them contacting me. I could help you as a leader with coaching or your team. So monetize in that way, but not necessarily monetize on YouTube with ads and stuff like that. So I'm not really going for that. I just want to keep my focus of these broadcasts on just giving some really good content to people and helping them out in that way, and not worry too much about all the views and all of that. If it's good stuff and it gets shared, that's great. And so I think with YouTube and the Facebook and LinkedIn, it's more shareable that way. And so, with Periscope, it's a little tougher. You can share real time, of course. You can invite your followers right now, but it's too tough to know who's who. And I haven't had many trolls lately, but oftentimes there's a lot of trolls and whatnot. So yeah, I love Periscope because I think it's really interactive. I would say it's been the most interactive so far with the different platforms. Maybe some of it's because of the anonymity. It's interactive, but I'm just experimenting, seeing what works. And Periscope was great for the first couple years, and the last couple, it's just, yeah. So I'm trying different things. Yeah, I may come back. It's possible at some point. That's a possibility. So I'm going to do a couple announcements on just Periscope only, just purely to explain that alone. So anyone that's following me, I've got a few hundred followers, so at least that they can know where to go to find me. And I think I have my website in my handle, but I'll probably put the Facebook site in the handle or something like that. So, and maybe occasionally I'll pop on Periscope. This is an informal thing, but you know. All right, so hopefully that was helpful tonight, and I will be back on Friday. I'm trying to line up. I have some exciting people I'm trying to line up for interviews on Fridays. There will be High Five Live interviews. And when I don't have one, it'll just be a regular High Five Friday where you can just ask whatever career questions you have, whatever leadership questions you have, or workplace issues, challenges. So this Friday, it's looking like we'll probably just do a regular High Five Friday. So come on, bring your questions, your challenges, or just shoot the breeze a bit. You know, drop in, we'll shoot the breeze a bit and talk about COVID, talk about whatever, whatever's going on. All right, probably not politics. I tend to stay away from that because there's enough other forums for politics. So, all right, take care. Bye-bye.